Dad, the car's making that sound again. Vance Nolan dropped his wrench and wiped his greasy hands on the side of his jeans as his 7-year-old son, Zeke, came running around the side of the house, dragging his backpack behind him. "What sound?" Vance asked, crouching beside the beat-up Toyota parked in front of their tiny garage. "The clunk one. Like it's coughing," Zeke said, mimicking the noise with his mouth. Vance chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "All right, we'll take a look after dinner." Zeke grinned and ran inside their small rented house, where the kitchen light flickered and the heater groaned like an old man. Vance exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Life wasn't easy, not since his ex walked out 3 years ago. But he had Zeke, and that was enough. Across town, Daphne Norwood sat behind the wheel of a sleek black Range Rover, staring blankly at the engine warning light flashing red on her dashboard. "You've got to be kidding me." She'd only been in town for 2 days. She came to escape the noise of Manhattan, to get away from boardrooms, fake smiles, and the never-ending pressure of being Daphne Norwood, billionaire heiress, CEO of Norwood Enterprises, and the youngest woman to ever make Forbes' top 10. But no one here in the sleepy town of Hawthorne Bend knew that, and she liked it that way. She pulled off the road and parked near an old gas station that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. A hand-painted sign read, "Nolan repairs honest work, no nonsense." Daphne stepped out of her car in a cashmere coat and leather boots, trying not to wrinkle her nose at the smell of motor oil and gasoline. A man stood beneath the hood of a rusted pickup, sleeves rolled up, forearms streaked with grease, dark hair tousled like he hadn't bothered with a mirror. He turned, and Daphne's breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and rugged in a way that didn't belong on magazine covers. His eyes caught hers, deep-set and tired, but kind. "You lost," he called, wiping his hands. "My car's making a weird noise," she said, walking over. "Some kind of clunking." He grinned just a hint and nodded toward the Range Rover. "Pop the hood." "Let's see what we're dealing with." Daphne blinked, a little thrown. In her world, men usually did a double take when they saw her. They tried to impress her. This man didn't even blink. She did as told, and Vance leaned over the engine, muttering a soft huh. "Timing belt." "You're lucky you pulled over when you did," he said after a moment. "Could have shredded your engine. Can you fix it?" "Yeah, but I'll need to order the part. Might take a day or two. I can show you how to check the belts and fluids while you're here." "Might save you a headache someday." Daphne stared at him. No one had ever offered to teach her how to fix anything. She was used to people doing things for her, not showing her how to do them. "You do that," he shrugged. "Why not? You're here anyway." "Name's Vance, by the way." "Daphne," she said, almost too quickly. She didn't add Norwood. She didn't want to. The next morning, she showed up in jeans and a hoodie, her hair tied back. Vance handed her a pair of gloves. "Ever changed oil before?" he asked. "Not unless you count scheduling a mechanic," he laughed, low and rich. "You're in for a treat." Over the next 2 days, Daphne found herself looking forward to their time in the garage. Vance was patient and funny. He showed her how to check tire pressure, change the oil, and even replace a spark plug. He had a way of making her feel capable, like she wasn't just a product of her last name. "You don't talk like someone from around here," Vance said one afternoon as she handed him a socket wrench. "Spent a lot of time in the city," she replied, keeping it vague. He nodded but didn't push. She liked that too. When the part finally arrived, Vance called her over. "You ready to replace your timing belt like a pro?" she grinned. "Only if you're supervising." They worked side by side, hands brushing as they reached for tools. The air between them shifted warmer, charged. By the time they were done, grease smudged across her cheek and both of them laughing. Daphne couldn't stop staring at him. "You've got something," Vance said, reaching out. His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a streak of oil. Neither of them moved. "Thanks," she said softly. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. "You're different," he said. "So are you." Before either could say more, Zeke burst through the garage door. "Dad, I found my Lego piece." Daphne turned, surprised. "Your son?" Vance ruffled Zeke's hair. "Yep, this is Zeke. Zeke, this is Daphne." Zeke gave her a big grin. "You look like someone from a movie," Daphne laughed, heart skipping. "I'll take that as a compliment." She stayed for dinner that night. Vance cooked spaghetti while Daphne helped Zeke build a Lego tower. It felt Normal, cozy, real. Later, as she stood outside beside her fixed car, she hesitated. "Thanks for everything," she said. "Really?" Vance leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're easy to teach. Most people don't want to get their hands dirty. I liked it," she admitted. He smiled. "Well, if you ever want to learn how to rotate tires, you know where to find me." She paused, then leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "I might take you up on that." Vance watched as she drove away, unaware that the woman who just kissed him goodnight owned 4 private jets, a Manhattan penthouse, and more than half the companies on Wall Street. But Daphne didn't want to be a billionaire tonight. She just wanted to be someone who learned to change a tire, and possibly fell for the man who taught her. The following week brought rain. Not just a drizzle, a full, relentless downpour that turned the streets of Hawthorne Bend into rivers, and left the air thick with the scent of wet leaves and damp pavement. The garage's tin roof rattled under the weight of it, and inside, Vance leaned over the workbench, adjusting the carburetor for a neighbor's old ATV. He hadn't seen Daphne since the timing belt replacement. She hadn't come by, hadn't called. Not that she'd given him a number. He told himself it didn't matter. She was probably just passing through, like a lot of people who came to Hawthorne Bend looking for something quiet, only to leave when the silence got too loud. Still, he found himself glancing at the road more often than usual. Zeke sat in the corner, coloring on a flattened cardboard box, his tongue poking out in concentration. The heater clanked to life, warming the space just enough to cut through the chill. "Dad, can we go to the library later?" Zeke asked without looking up. Vance wiped his hands on a rag. "Sure. We'll go after I finish this." The bell above the side door jingled suddenly, sharp against the hum of the rain. Vance turned, and there she was. Daphne stood in the doorway, water dripping from the hood of her navy raincoat, cheeks flushed from the cold. She carried a brown paper bag in one hand and looked hesitant, like she wasn't sure he'd be glad to see her. "You came back," he said before he could stop himself. Her mouth twitched upward. "Thought I'd return the favor. I brought lunch." Zeke's head popped up. "Miss Daphne," she crouched beside him, pulling out 2 wrapped sandwiches and a container of sliced apples. "Hope you like turkey. I wasn't sure if you were more of a PB&J guy," Zeke beamed. "I like both," Vance blinked. "You didn't have to do that. I know." She stood and handed him a sandwich. "But I wanted to." They ate together in the garage, sitting on overturned crates and milk cartons. Rain tapped steadily against the windows, and conversation came easy lighter this time, less guarded. "You ever work in a shop before?" Vance asked between bites. Daphne shook her head. "No, my jobs have always been indoors." He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of indoors?" "The kind with a lot of meetings and people talking over each other," she said, carefully vague. He chuckled. "Sounds exhausting." "It is," she hesitated. "But being here, this place is the first time I've breathed properly in months." Something tightened in Vance's chest. He didn't know what kind of life she came from, but he could tell it wasn't like his. Her nails were clean, her coat probably cost more than his rent, but she didn't flinch when she got grease on her hands. She didn't wrinkle her nose at the smell of oil or the cracked linoleum floors. She stayed until dusk. Zeke had fallen asleep on a pile of old blankets in the corner, and the storm had finally eased into a soft drizzle. Vance walked her to her car, umbrella in hand. She paused before opening the door, looking up at him. "I wasn't sure you'd want me to come back." "I did," he said simply. She hesitated, fingers on the handle. "I don't usually do this." "Do what?" "Show up, bring lunch, sit in garages with people I barely know." He studied her, the way her hair curled at the edges from the rain, the way her eyes searched his face like she was trying to find a reason not to leave. "You can keep showing up," he said. "That'd be fine with me." She looked away, then back again, like she was about to say something more but changed her mind. Instead, she nodded and got into the car. He watched her taillights disappear around the bend. Later that night, after he'd tucked Zeke into bed and cleaned the dishes from their simple dinner, he found something beneath the stack of napkins in the brown paper bag. She'd brought a folded note, written in neat, deliberate handwriting. He read it once, then again. "Thank you for making me feel like a person again." He folded it carefully and tucked it into the drawer beside his bed. The next morning she returned, this time in jeans and an old sweatshirt, hair pulled into a messy twist. She didn't knock. Just walked into the garage, grabbed a pair of gloves and said, "What's next?" Vance blinked, caught off guard. "You're back already. I've got free time," she said, wiping her hands on a rag. "Figured I could spend it doing something useful. You sure about that?" She looked him square in the eye. "Teach me something harder." So he did. He handed her the manual for a carburetor rebuild and watched her eyes scan it, brow furrowing. She asked questions sharp, intelligent ones, and caught on fast. By midday, she had grease on her temple and dirt under her nails. He'd never seen anyone look more out of place and more right at the same time. They worked side by side, no music, just the sound of tools and quiet, natural conversation. She told him about her favorite books growing up, how she used to fix her bicycle with her grandfather, and how she once got stuck in an elevator for 2 hours and made friends with a stranger over a shared pack of gum. He told her about Zeke's obsession with dinosaurs and how he once tried to fix a toaster with duct tape. She laughed full and loud, and something in his chest twisted again. By the time the sun dipped low, casting a golden haze through the garage windows, she stood with her hands on her hips, grinning at the engine she'd helped him bring back to life. "That wasn't so bad," she said. "You're a quick study. I've always liked learning new things, even ones that involve getting your hands dirty." She looked at him, serious now. "Especially those." They stood there for a moment, neither moving. Then Zeke ran in from the house, waving a paper airplane and yelling something about dinner. The moment passed, but the shift remained. She stayed for dinner again. This time she helped cook. He gave her the cutting board, and she diced vegetables like someone who'd done it 1,000 times. They worked in rhythm, trading sarcastic remarks and laughing over Zeke's constant commentary. After Zeke fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon, she lingered. "I should go," she said, though she didn't move. "You could stay." He caught himself. "I mean not stay. Just for a little longer," she smiled, soft and unguarded. "I'd like that." They stood in the kitchen, the silence comfortable now. She leaned against the counter, sipping tea he'd brewed from the last of the mint leaves in the garden. "You're not what I expected," she said quietly. "Neither are you." She hesitated, then looked down at her cup. "There's something I haven't told you." Vance studied her carefully. "Okay. I didn't come here by accident." He waited. "I needed to get away," she said, "from a life that looked perfect on the outside but felt hollow." He nodded slowly. "I get that. I didn't expect this. You, Zeke, any of it." He stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough for her to feel his presence. "I'm glad you did." She looked up, eyes meeting his, and something passed between them. A question, a promise, a beginning. Neither of them said anything more. She left a little after midnight, her car headlights cutting through the darkness. Vance stood on the porch long after she was gone, the note still folded in his pocket, the scent of her shampoo lingering in the kitchen air. He didn't know everything about her, but he knew enough to want more. The following Saturday, Daphne pulled up to the garage just as the sun broke through a patch of gray clouds, casting gold across the wet pavement. Vance was already outside, hauling a rusted lawnmower from the back of a neighbor's truck. He looked up when he heard the tires crunch gravel and stood straighter, brushing his hands on his jeans. "You're early," he said, shielding his eyes. "There was traffic on my side of town," Daphne said, stepping out in sneakers and a faded denim jacket she dug from the back of her closet. "I didn't want to miss my carburetor quiz." Vance grinned. "Pop quiz or open book? I was hoping for extra credit." "All right then," he said, leading her toward the workbench. "Let's see if you remember the difference between a flathead and a Phillips." She passed. After an hour of tuning up the lawnmower, Daphne leaned back, wrists streaked with oil, and rolled her shoulders. "You know, I've been thinking about opening a repair shop of my own." "Yeah," Vance glanced over. "Where?" She paused. "Somewhere quiet." "Somewhere like this." He nodded, but didn't press. Instead, he offered her a bottle of water. "Most people don't stick around long enough to think about staying." Daphne twisted the cap and took a sip. "Maybe I'm not most people." Before he could respond, Zeke came bounding around the corner from the backyard, a paper crown perched crookedly on his head. "Dad, can Daphne come to the school picnic next week? Miss Talia said we could bring someone and I want her to come. She knows how to play tag." Vance looked from his son to Daphne, unsure if it was too much to ask. Daphne crouched to Zeke's level. "I'd love to come, but only if you promise not to go easy on me," Zeke beamed. "Okay, but I run fast now. I won the race last week." "I believe it," she said, touching the edge of his paper crown. "Royal speed." Vance cleared his throat. "It's next Thursday after school. We can pick you up if you want." "I'll be there," she said without hesitation. After Zeke ran off, chasing a butterfly with one shoe untied, Vance leaned against the wall of the garage. "You don't have to say yes to everything he asks." "I want to," she said. "He's got good taste." Vance looked at her for a long moment. "You're not just passing through, are you?" "I was," she said quietly. "But then I met someone who made me slow down." He didn't answer, just handed her a wrench. That night, after they closed up the garage, Daphne offered to drive them both home. Vance hesitated, surprised, but nodded. Zeke was already half asleep in the passenger seat before they pulled out of the lot. Daphne drove carefully, her fingers relaxed on the steering wheel. "This is nicer than any of the cars I've driven before," she said, glancing at the dashboard. "You're the first person to say that," Vance replied. "Most people call it a junker." She smiled. "It's got character. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not." He didn't say anything for a moment. "You ever think about that? How many things in life are pretending, all the time?" When they arrived at the house, she helped carry Zeke inside. Vance laid him gently on the couch, pulling a blanket over him. Daphne lingered in the doorway, unsure if she was meant to stay or leave. "You want coffee?" Vance asked suddenly. She followed him into the kitchen, where he poured water into the old kettle on the stove. The silence between them was different now, no longer uncertain, but weighted with something unspoken. "I had a meeting scheduled this week," she said, watching him reach for the mugs. "In New York," he paused. "And?" "I didn't go." Vance turned, brow furrowed. "Was it important?" "Probably," she said. "But I didn't want to leave." The kettle began to whistle, soft and low, as he poured the water over the grounds and handed her a mug. "I don't know what you're running from," he said, "but I can tell you this town doesn't ask questions it doesn't want answers to." "I'm not running anymore," she said, meeting his eyes. "I'm just choosing." They sat down at the kitchen table, steam curling from their mugs. Outside, wind rustled the trees and a dog barked somewhere down the street. "You ever think about doing something else?" she asked. "Besides fixing things?" "I used to dream about building motorcycles," he said. "Custom ones, sleek lines, chrome frames, but dreams don't keep the lights on." "Not when you've got a kid." Daphne nodded slowly. "What if you had help?" Vance's eyes narrowed. "What kind of help?" "Someone who believes in what you can do, who's got the means to make it happen." He leaned back. "You trying to invest in me now? I'm trying to give you options." "I don't need a handout." "It wouldn't be," she said. "It'd be a partnership." He stared at her, something unreadable in his gaze. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because I believe in you. And because I don't want to keep pretending I'm someone I'm not." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and fragile. Vance leaned forward. "Then stop pretending." She set her mug down. "My name isn't just Daphne, it's Daphne Norwood." He blinked. "Norwood. As in the shipping company, and tech, and real estate, and about 12 other things." She took a breath. "I'm not here on vacation. I came here because I couldn't breathe in that world anymore." Vance stood, pushing his chair back. "So all this, the garage, the learning engines, the sandwiches, was a break from your real life?" "No," she said quickly. "It's the first time I felt like I had a real life." He looked away, jaw tight. "I don't know what to say to that." "Say you believe me." "I don't know if I do." She stood too. "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's not the same thing." "I know," she said, voice shaking, "but I didn't do it to hurt you. I just wanted to be seen for something other than my bank account." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing across his face. "You should have told me." "I was scared." "Of what?" "That you'd treat me differently, that this whatever this is would disappear." He didn't answer. Zeke stirred on the couch, murmuring something in his sleep. Daphne stepped back. "I should go." Vance didn't stop her. He didn't walk her to the door. She left quietly, the screen door clicking shut behind her. Out on the porch, she paused only once, eyes lifting to the stars that blinked faintly above the trees. She whispered to no one, "I chose you." Then she walked to her car, started the engine, and disappeared down the road, leaving behind the only place that had ever felt like home. The schoolyard buzzed with the kind of chaos only a dozen sugar-hyped children could create. Folding chairs lined the edge of the playground, and parents sipped lukewarm coffee from paper cups, chatting over the sound of jump ropes snapping against the pavement and soccer balls thudding into fence posts. Vance stood near the chain-link fence, arms crossed, scanning the crowd. Zeke was somewhere in the swarm of kids, his red hoodie making him easy to spot. What wasn't easy was not looking for her. He hadn't reached out since that night in the kitchen. She hadn't either. He'd gone to bed with her voice in his head and woken up with it still there. The silence that followed was its own kind of ache, one he didn't know how to fix, even with all the tools in the world. "Dad," Zeke's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The boy came sprinting across the grass, his cheeks flushed. "She's here." "Daphne's here." Vance followed his son's gaze and froze. She was walking toward them, her steps measured, but her eyes locked on his like she hadn't stopped thinking about that night either. She wore no makeup, no designer labels. Just a gray sweater, jeans, and a look that said she wasn't here to pretend. Zeke ran straight to her and threw his arms around her waist. "I saved you a spot on the blanket." Daphne crouched to hug him tightly. "Best offer I've had all day." When she stood, her gaze didn't waver. "Hi," Vance nodded once. "Hi. I wasn't sure if I should come," she said. He looked away for a moment, then back at her. "But you did." "I didn't like how we left things." He let out a quiet breath. "Neither did I." She glanced at the kids running past them. "I meant everything I said. I just didn't say it soon enough." He didn't answer right away. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead. Finally, he said, "You scared me. I don't meet many people who see me before they see what I can't give them." "I didn't come here looking for anything," she said. "But I found something I didn't know I needed." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And what's that?" "A reason to stay." Zeke tugged on both their sleeves. "You're gonna miss the three-legged race." "Let's go." They followed him to the field where a teacher was explaining the rules with exaggerated gestures and a whistle around her neck. Vance hesitated. "You want to partner with him?" he asked. Daphne shook her head. "No, I want to partner with you." He raised a brow. "You sure you can handle losing?" She grinned. "I've handled worse." They tied their inside legs together with a strip of cloth. The whistle blew and they stumbled forward, laughing as they tried to find a rhythm. They didn't win, but they didn't fall either. And when they crossed the finish line, breathless and tangled, they were both laughing in a way they hadn't in days. Afterward, they sat on the edge of the blanket while Zeke darted around with a juice box in hand, chasing a friend with a pool noodle. Vance rested his elbows on his knees. "You really walked away from all that. The corporations, the boardrooms, the whatever else comes with being you." "I didn't walk away," she said. "I paused, so I could make a choice that was mine." "And what are you choosing now?" "I want to build something, not just with money, with meaning. With someone who knows the value of doing things the hard way." He looked at her, unsure whether to believe her. "You don't owe me anything." "I know, that's why I'm here." She reached into the bag at her side and pulled out a worn leather folder. "This is for you." He opened it carefully. Inside were architectural plans, drawings of a garage, but bigger, sleeker. With a second bay, a storefront, and a logo sketched across the top in bold black ink, Nolan Custom Builds. He blinked. "What is this?" "I bought the empty lot behind your current garage. It's zoned. It's clean. It's yours if you want it." He stared at her, speechless. "I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness," she said. "I'm trying to invest in the version of you that would have built this on his own if life hadn't gotten in the way." He looked down at the plans again. "This would change everything." "Exactly," she said. "It's not a gift, it's a beginning." Vance swallowed hard. "You really believe in me that much?" "I believe in us," she said. Zeke ran over, panting. "Are you guys gonna kiss now?" They burst out laughing. Vance ruffled his son's hair. "Go get another juice box, buddy." Daphne stood, brushing crumbs off her jeans. "I should head out. I've got a call tonight. The board wants answers." He stood too. "And what are you gonna tell them?" "I'm stepping down." He blinked. "You're serious?" "I'm handing it off to someone I trust. I'll still be involved, but not like before. I want a life that feels like mine." He stared at her, then slowly nodded. "You're something else." She stepped closer. "So are you." He reached for her hand. "You're not running anymore." "No," she said. I'm home. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Vance pulled up to the new lot with Daphne and Zeke in the truck. They stepped out and walked the perimeter, the grass still high, the future still wild. He turned to her. You sure about this? She looked around, then at him. I've never been more sure of anything. Zeke tugged on her hand. Can we build a treehouse in the back? Vance leaned down. We can build anything we want. Daphne smiled, tears in her eyes, but they didn't fall. She was too full of hope for that. She had walked into a garage looking to fix a car. Instead, she'd found a man who repaired something far more broken, her heart. And this time, she wasn't leaving. The new garage opened on the first weekend of June. Sunlight poured through the tall bay windows, catching on polished chrome and fresh paint. The Nolan custom-build sign gleamed above the entrance, black lettering against wood reclaimed from a fallen barn on the outskirts of town. Inside, the space echoed with promise: 2 lifts, a full office, and a tool shed organized with pristine precision. Vance stood near the entrance, adjusting the collar of his button-down shirt. It wasn't his usual style, but Daphne had chosen it, and she was right, it fit the occasion. She was inside, talking to the mayor about zoning permits, her voice confident without being domineering. She didn't need to lead with power. She radiated it quietly now in the way she listened, the way she stood with her shoulders open, not braced anymore. Zeke darted between folding chairs and the buffet table, balancing a cupcake and a paper plate stacked with cornbread and chili. He wore a t-shirt with the shop's logo, proud like it was his name on the door too. Vance watched them both, heart full but heavy with something unsaid. He hadn't told her yet, not because he was hiding it, but because he didn't know how to put it into the kind of words that didn't shrink what he felt. The decision had come a few weeks earlier, when he was under the hood of a Harley frame he and Daphne had started restoring together. She'd paused beside him, grease on her cheekbone, and said, I think you've got more in you than just repairs. She hadn't meant it as an insult. She'd meant it as a challenge, and he'd risen to it. Now, with the grand opening in full swing and the mayor cutting a ceremonial ribbon outside, Vance finally pulled Daphne aside. Come with me, he said quietly. She followed him to the back of the garage, where a tall double door led to a smaller, enclosed space. He unlocked it and stepped back. The room was immaculate. A single motorcycle sat in the center, gleaming black with silver accents. It wasn't just custom, it was a design of his own, built from scratch with parts sourced over months. On the wall behind it hung a framed sign, Nolan and Norwood Custom Designs. Daphne stared at it. You're naming the line after both of us, he nodded, because it wouldn't exist without both of us. She walked toward the bike without speaking, running her fingers along the seat. It's beautiful. It's yours, her head snapped up. What? The first model, I built it for you. Every detail, she shook her head, half laughing, half speechless. Vance, he stepped closer. You gave me more than a new shop, you gave me the chance to dream bigger. And I want to build every one of those dreams with you. The air between them shifted, no longer charged with tension, but with something deeper certainty. I'm not going anywhere, she said softly. Not ever again. He took her face in his hands and kissed her, slow and sure, no more questions lingering between them. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. Did I mention I already ordered our first online campaign for the new design line? You didn't, he said, grinning, but I'm not surprised. I used your sketches, every one of them. They returned to the party hand in hand. The townspeople toasted the new shop, and Zeke gave a short speech that mostly involved thanking everyone for showing up and asking if he could eat another cupcake. That evening, after the guests had left and the sky turned dusky lavender, they sat on the back steps of the garage, legs stretched out, their shoulders touching. You know, Daphne said, watching Zeke attempt to catch fireflies in a mason jar, I used to think love had to come with conditions. That there was always a price. Vance looked over at her. And now I know it's just supposed to feel like this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I was going to wait, but I don't want any more. She turned to him slowly. Vance, he opened it. Inside was a simple ring platinum, understated with a single oval diamond. Elegant, timeless. I don't need a fancy proposal, he said. I don't need a stage or a camera crew or a rooftop dinner. I just want you and Zeke. and this life we're building. Will you marry me? Tears blurred her vision. She laughed through them, nodding before she could speak. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely. They kissed again, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything but promised everything. The wedding came 6 weeks later. It was held at the shop, with fairy lights strung between the trees and tables set up in the back. Daphne wore a tea-length dress that flared at the knees and left grease-free room for dancing. Vance wore a navy vest and tie, his sleeves rolled up by the time the vows were over. Zeke stood between them, holding the rings. The ceremony was short, sweet, and full of emotion. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Zeke cheered the loudest and the whole crowd laughed. Later that night, they danced in the middle of the shop floor, the motorcycle lights casting soft glows against the walls. Music drifted from the speakers, and stars blinked through the garage windows. I never thought I'd end up here, Daphne said, swaying in his arms. Me neither, Vance murmured, but I wouldn't change a thing. She rested her head on his shoulder. We've got a good life, don't we? The best, he said. As the music played, Zeke fell asleep in a hammock someone had strung between two pillars. The food was nearly gone, the guests slowly filtering out with hugs and handshakes, and still, Vance and Daphne danced. They danced until the lights dimmed and the night settled around them like a warm blanket. And when they finally stepped outside, the stars were still waiting, the shop behind them aglow with everything they had dreamed into existence. The garage wasn't just a business anymore. It was the place where two people from different worlds met, where they stripped away everything they thought defined them and found each other real, unguarded, and whole. It was where a woman who once ruled skyscrapers found something better than power. It was where a man who fixed broken things finally found someone who saw he didn't need fixing at all. And it was where their forever began.